Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inside RCR. And today we have a lot to cover. We're going to discuss Sonoma. We're going to look at Andy Street's strategy on the 33 yesterday that didn't pan out very well. And we're also going to look ahead to Chicagoland, the first race back at that speedway since 2019. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about the Dodge rumors about them coming back to the Cup Series in 2027. So y'all, let's get started. So let's jump right into the Sonoma recap. I was really looking forward to this weekend, especially for the 33 car. Not really for the whole organization of RCR, because I knew that Austin Dillon would probably struggle here. He's not the greatest on the road courses, but I was really looking forward to Austin Hill. He kind of showed that he has some speed in these next gen cars last week at San Diego, having a really good race there till he got was in that crash. So I was really looking forward to kind of what they would bring to the racetrack at Sonoma. And in practice on Saturday, they kind of had some decent pace. They were in that first group, so the track was a little bit slower. So they were kind of at a disadvantage there. And in qualifying, they was able to lay down a really good lap compared to the 97 car, and was able to come out with a 12th place qualifying effort, which I thought was a huge win for those guys. And I was really looking forward to yesterday's race. I thought that they were going to have decent pace to be there in the top 10. I predicted, if you follow me on X, I do every Sunday. I'll do a prediction tweet. I'll post a graphic of where I think the guys will finish, and I predicted that Austin Hill would finish in the top 10 because I strongly felt that way. Because they had speed at San Diego, and they kind of had the speed to back it up at Sonoma. But unfortunately, in the race, he kind of fell back, and it was Sonoma yesterday was such a, kind of a boring race. It was hard to pass. There was not really a lot of passing going on. If there was a pass, it's because someone made a mistake, got offline a little bit, and someone was able to capitalize on it. And that's one thing that was happening with Austin Hill. He was falling back there at the beginning of stage one. He was complaining about he was real tight, but there towards the end of the stage, he said the track was changing. He was starting to get really loose, and he couldn't keep the rear tires under him, and that's why he kept getting passed. And I think he fell down to about like 17th or so at the end of stage one. And then they short pitted and was able to jump back and get back into the top 15 at the end of that stage. But I thought, their pace was decent. The changes that Andy was making on the car for Austin was helping, and he was kind of going to start, moving along up the field. But then obviously it all changed when it got down to the final stage, which we'll get more into that here in a minute. For Austin Dillon, they struggled all weekend. They didn't have the speed in practice. They didn't have the speed in qualifying, and didn't have the speed in the race. It was just a typical Austin Dillon road course. I know they're excited to get to Chicagoland back on the oval. I know all the Austin Dillon fans, including myself, are looking forward to that. And just as a whole for RCR, it's been a tough month, and the finishes, 27th and 34th. They haven't had a top 10 since Watkins Glen in May with Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. So, it's just been a, terrible month, and, hopefully they can get things turned around. All right, let's jump into the Andy Street strategy in stage 3 for Austin Hill. That's kind of the big discussion for all the RCR fans today or throughout social media. Throughout stage 2, Austin had kind of fell back into like 23rd spot and kind of ran there throughout the whole stage because it was so hard to pass. He couldn't make any headway. He had a lot of speed, but just couldn't make the passes to kind of gain that track position back. So obviously Andy Street was going to have to do something. He was able to at the beginning of the final stage, he was able to be in 15th spot. That's where they were when they pitted under that caution. So the caution came out with I think 2 laps, or not even 2 laps maybe, into the final stage. And it was like 49 laps to go. I think the fuel window was around 43 laps. So they kind of weren't far off on the fuel window of the for sure number to make it. So obviously when I heard that Andy was going to bring Austin Hill down pit road, I was kind of excited, because I like when his crew chief kind of makes a bold strategy like that, or makes a bold move to kind of gain some track position. So at the time, I didn't mind it. I was excited, kind of gave me something to keep an eye on throughout the remainder of the race, because the rest of the race was kind of just a snooze fest. So yeah, so the caution came out. They pit. The 7 and 21 were also on the same strategy. They pit. And at first, I thought the strategy was to, go the whole distance on fuel, which it was the main strategy, I guess. But that's what I thought the whole agenda was. But as the course of the race went on, and I realized that okay, they're not going to win the race on this strategy, but they could probably get a better finish. But the tires just didn't hold up, and obviously he ended up plummeting. He did end up pitting, and that's why he went a lap down. But it sucks because they started, like I said, they started stage 3 in 15th, and they could have probably ran 15th that whole stage and got a lot better finish than 34. So and Andy Street, he owned it on the radio. He said, "I'm sorry, it was on me." And I think the more I thought about the strategy, I think what they were trying to do was hope for a caution closer. Once they pit, they're on that caution. They were hoping for another caution towards the pit window, and they would have stayed out. They would have probably only had 6 laps on their tires, which is still a lot, especially at Sonoma. But also, I think they could have, it would have been a lot easier to manage his fuel. He could have saved fuel under the yellow. He could have managed his fuel a little bit throughout that run, and also managed his tires. And he could have probably, it was so hard to pass, he could have managed that a lot better. And he probably would have finished around the same, like 15th, if it worked out in that scenario. But I know a lot of people are probably like, you read all the stuff when you go click on RCR's social media, and all the comments that are on it are always negative. And like I said, I'm not mad at Andy Street. Like I said, I'm glad he made that call. I like a crew chief that makes bold strategies. I believe in Andy Street. I believe he's the right guy to lead that team, especially at this moment. And I hope that he's going to be the crew chief again next year for whoever drives the car. But let me know in the comments what you guys thought of Andy Street's strategy yesterday. Before we end the video and kind of talk a little bit about Chicagoland, I want to touch base on Dodge. We learned over the week, or this past week, that Dodge is looking to return to the Cup Series in 2027, and all signs are pointing to that. And obviously, you're like, Jake, well, what's that have to do with RCR? Well, in my dream scenario, that would be a dream scenario for RCR to go to Dodge, just because I feel like their performance would be better. But I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening, at least in 2027. I listened to Jordan Bianchi's video on Dirty Mo Media, and I also listened to Brake Hard's video on this topic. And I think Colleague is going to be the team that is going to be the Dodge team if they do go to the Cup Series in 2027, because obviously they got the Truck Series deal going on. It's something to keep an eye on as an RCR fan, though, because Colleague is neighbors with RCR. I did do some digging and some investigation work, which is not hard. Just look up the court record, or not the court records, but the property taxes or whatever. But Colleague does own the building there. There for a little while, I was like, well, I don't know about that, but they do. When I first heard that, but they do own the buildings that they have at RCR or in Welcome. Those are Colleague buildings, but it would make sense for Dodge to have its own little central hub in Welcome, North Carolina. But like I said, as of right now, there's no rumors for RCR to go to Dodge, but it's something to at least keep your eye on. Looking ahead to Chicagoland, man, it's so great to see that racetrack back on the schedule. It's going to be a lot of fun to sit and watch all the racing this weekend there. It's going to be a worn out surface, man. It's crazy to think that 2001 was 25 years ago, but that asphalt's been there since 2001. It's aged. It hasn't seen any type of racing on it since 2019. So I think the next gen car, I hope, puts on a great show. I know the O'Reilly car is going to put on a phenomenal show this weekend in Chicago. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it. I hope that RCR can have a good day. I know, you know, the last good run on the mile and a half was Texas. That was almost 2 months ago. So, you know, hopefully, I know Austin Dillon's going to be excited to get back on an oval. And then I think we can kind of see Austin Hill keep learning these next gen cars on the oval. Only bad thing about this weekend, though, and maybe good thing because y'all probably get tired of me posting a lot during race day or during the race on Sundays, but I won't be able to give updates like I usually do on X. I'm actually going out of town for the whole week, or not this week, but that weekend going into next week, going out west, going on a road trip. So I'm going to have a little different Inside RCR next week, but I'm excited to share what I have planned for that episode. So y'all stay tuned for that. But once again, guys, just thank you guys for watching. And if you like this video, if you like RCR and you like Austin Hill, Austin Dillon, Jesse Love, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, follow me on X, Instagram. Inside RCR now has an Instagram, so check that out. And y'all have a great week, and let's get ready for Chicago.